Namaste. Welcome and thank you for your yoga practice today. Today we will be doing a Yin Yoga sequence to honor the shadow side. So the shadow side is the more unconscious, repressed side of being. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to connect to that area and move the unconscious into the conscious as a way to connect and heal. Physically, what this is going to look like is some deep hip opening postures, as well as getting a little bit into the shoulders as well. Sort of those big cavities of the body that really become emotional sort of junk drawers for the body. So we're going to work out clearing those areas just a bit, and then talk a little bit more about what the shadow side is and what shadow work really looks like in our yoga practice. So let's get started. We'll meet together in child's pose. So start by bringing the knees open wide, big toes together, and as you're ready, sit down onto your heels and stretch your arms out long in front of you. And just take a minute here to really settle into your seat and into your body. Maybe taking a few deep breaths to start. Inhaling through the nose. Then exhale, sigh it out, let it go. Take two more just like that. Inhale. Exhale. So really allowing your body to begin to settle into your practice here. This may be your first yoga pose of the day. So just come into it with a little bit of awareness as you just notice the body start to slowly wake up. Maybe beginning to relax across the muscles of your face. Letting the eyes fall back into their sockets as the jaw relaxes. Feeling this bit of extension through the tips of your fingers, but then at the same time, can you soften and melt the shoulders down your back? Arriving into this space, arriving into your body. Let's take your next inhale to press into the palms. Gently begin to lift the gaze towards your fingers. Staying here in your child's pose, we're just going to take a thread the needle hybrid. So as you exhale, take your right hand, thread it underneath your left bicep, crawling the fingertips away from the body so you can eventually relax down onto the right shoulder and your right cheek. Okay, and letting that left elbow come back down to the floor, letting your whole body just really open up to the sense of gravity here. Let's breathe into the back of the right shoulder blade. As you start to create some space there. Maybe you can begin to start deepening your breath here. Lengthening the inhales all the way down to the base of your belly. And feeling the exhales fully contract, drawing your belly button, your rib cage back towards the spine. Getting rid of all the air. And let's press into the palms. Gently unwind, coming back through center, traditional child's pose. And before we come into the second side, if you need to give your hips and maybe the backs of the knees a break, you can lift the hips up and come out of the child's pose for a few breaths. If you even wanted to take a traditional thread the needle with lifted hips and open knees on the second side, that's available to you as well. But if you're still enjoying child's pose, keep the hips on the heels, and as you're ready, let's thread the left arm underneath the right. Let that left palm open up towards the ceiling. Softening down here. So we'll start by just bringing some awareness into the rhythm of your breath. Notice the texture, the quality behind your breath. Noticing if you feel a bit more high energy, or if you're feeling a bit softer. We just start with this observation. Just by observing, taking the time to slow down and observe what's really going on inside our bodies. It's this first step towards beginning to work with the shadow side. Let's press down into the right palm to slowly unravel. Come back, child's pose. Take a breath. You can rest down on your elbows and just let the spine and the shoulders come back to neutral. As you're ready, let's slowly lift up out of the child's pose. We'll come into tabletop pose. So draw your hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips. We'll take a few breaths in cat and cow, so feel free to add any little wiggles and shakes that you might like here. As you inhale, your belly drops, your heart and tailbone can lift up towards the sky. Exhale, round it in. Good. Take 3 more rounds just like that on your own. I really like to add in some side-to-side movements as well. Feeling free to release out the neck. Maybe shaking the head no, and nodding yes. Good, 2 more breaths. Just let your breath guide your movements here. Wonderful. As you're ready, inhale back to neutral spine. Bring your palms to the top of the mat. Spread your fingertips out wide. Tuck your toes. We'll come back to our first downward facing dog. As you press into the toes, lift the knees, drop the heels. Feel the shoulder blades wrap away from the ears, broadening across the backs of your shoulders and firming up through the arms, nice and strong here. Pressing the hips towards the back of the mat and up towards the ceiling. Let's take 2 full deep breaths. Inhale, lift the left leg up behind you, high in the sky. Reach out through the tips of your toes. Now bending the knee, we're going to come forward into Pigeon Pose. So bringing the knee to the left wrist, ankle towards the right. Go ahead and release down onto the back knee, untuck your toes. Now if you have a bit more space in the hips, you might be able to walk that back knee further away from you to settle down deeper into the hips. Or you might need to go in the opposite direction, bring the ground a little bit closer to you. You can do that by adding a block or maybe a bolster underneath that left hip. So just find the depth that best works for you here. As you're ready, start to settle down into your Pigeon Pose. Take a breath to inhale, lift up through the chest, pressing the floor away from you, sink down into your hips. And then if you'd like, you can lower down onto the elbows, but feeling free also to stay lifted if that's preferable for you. You may even be able to come all the way down onto your belly here. Just take the pose that best honors your body. If you are on your elbows, go ahead and grab for opposite elbows. So bringing the forearms parallel out in front of you. This just helps to broaden the back body a little bit and take some of the stress out of the shoulders. Let's relax down into the back of the neck. Start to find your breath. Maybe taking a few of those open mouth exhales as we first come into the posture. Signaling to our body that it's okay to let go and release a little bit here. And then as you settle in here, start to really notice the reactions and the responses in your body and in your mind here. You can start with a broad view, noticing your physical reactions. Right? Are you inclined to tensing up through the hips, maybe the glutes? Does your body sort of have an initial reaction to tighten and pull away? And then working with the breath, always honoring your own personal edge, but see if there's any way that you can consciously acknowledge that reaction in the body. And then use the exhale to maybe soften just a little bit. Remind yourself that it's okay to relax. It's okay to let go. It's okay to not be in control. Let's inhale, begin to gently lift. Bring your palms back down to the floor and lift the chest. We're just going to take 2 full breaths here in lifted Pigeon Pose. So pressing the floor away from you, open the chest up towards the ceiling, open the throat, breathe in. Breathe out. One more breath here, clearing out the heart space. Wonderful. Now to release, we're just going to roll onto the left side. So if you have any props there, go ahead and move them out of the way. Roll onto your left hip. You're going to swing the right leg all the way around, bending the knee up towards the sky. Bring the right foot to plant on the outer edge of the left knee. I'll turn to face you. So we're sitting flat on the floor. That left ankle is by the hip, but not directly underneath it. Take an inhale to lift the chest up towards the ceiling, hugging the knees in. And as you exhale, twisting to the right, hug the knee into the chest, bring the right palm behind you. Gazing back over the shoulder, only if it feels good for the neck. If it doesn't, you can bring the gaze to neutral, gazing towards that bent knee. If you'd like to add a little nuance here, you can bring the thumb and the pointer finger of the left hand together, bringing the 3 other fingers away, creating this Jnana mudra, or the seal of innate wisdom. Breathing around the pose to start. Allowing yourself to relax around the shape. So don't feel the need to really press or strain into the twist. Just allow the shape to do the work for you. So much like in our physical practice, this work with the shadow side calls for us to bring these reactions or these responses in the body into our consciousness. But rather than just noticing the physical responses in the body, which are much more tangible and usually easier to catch, shadow work calls for us to notice the more subtle body reactions as well. Sort of those inclinations that we have to react really harshly or to get really irritated for sometimes reasons that are unknown or unseen to us. A lot of times those reactions or responses have to do with innate and deep-set wounds or traumas or past histories that we have. And so much like our breath or our physical practice, that first step is just to notice. Right? Notice when we respond in those ways in our day-to-day life. Let's go ahead and bring the gaze forward first, unraveling from the top down. As you're ready, gently unwind. Just take a moment here at center. You can rest the hands onto the knees. Wonderful. Now beginning to slowly unwind, we're just going to come into Pigeon Pose on the second side. So you're going to thread the left leg out from underneath you, bring the left leg behind you, setting up for Pigeon Pose on the second side. It's not the most graceful transition, but as you're ready, walk the left leg behind you and your right knee is going to come forward. Knee towards right wrist, ankle towards the left. Again, maybe walking yourself further back or padding underneath that right hip. Take a breath to lift the chest up, press the floor away from you, big open heart, open throat. And exhale, gently lower down. Grabbing opposite elbows if you're on your elbows. And then relaxing into the back of the neck. Closing the eyes, just breathing deeply. So much like our physical practice, when we begin to notice these reactions that we have in the body and in the mind, once we call those into our consciousness, we can become more aware so that we can release, right, the grip of those patterns, or those reactions that are maybe keeping us at a lower vibrational state than what we're meant for. Right, the moment you start to question why you get so irritated at your partner for silly little things, and the moment you question why you react so defensively when you feel like someone's telling you you're wrong, right, the moment that we can begin to hold those patterns under a microscope, you start to acknowledge the truth that maybe those aren't really us at all. We can give ourselves the power to begin to let them go. Maybe some things are coming to mind for you here that you know you're ready to let go of. Let's inhale, gently begin to lift up through the chest. You can press into the palms. Again, taking 2 full breaths at the top in lifted pigeon here. So press into the hands, open heart, open throat, drop into the hips. Breathe into your heart. Give yourself permission to let it go, clear it out. And again, rolling over to the right side. Now this time coming into our twisted pose, second side. So bringing that left leg all the way up and around. Foot plants to the outer right knee as your right ankle comes around to the edge of your seat. Hugging that left knee in towards the chest, big inhale, sit up tall. And exhale, hugging the knee in towards the chest, the left hand can come behind you. Good, find your breath. Maybe again finding that Yana mudra, thumb and pointer finger together, 3 fingers away. Calling in the insight and the divine wisdom to help us to be able to see these patterns or these shadow sides that we're ready to let go of. Soften through the shoulders. Soften through the jaw. Maybe closing the eyes here. Releasing the mudra. Gently bring the gaze forward first. As you're ready, you can slowly unwind through the rest of the spine. Interlacing hands around that front knee, closing the eyes, take a breath to neutralize and settle. And let's release both the legs, unwinding. Stretch both legs out long in front of you. We'll come into caterpillar pose to seal our practice. And so here you have the option to bend the knees as much as you need to. You could even bring the feet all the way flat on the floor if you know that you have a little bit of strain in the low back and the hamstrings today. And then rounding forward on the spine and resting the forehead on the knees. If you have a bit more space in your body this evening or want a juicier stretch, you can extend into the legs. Soft bend in the knees to start. Inhale, sit up nice and tall. And exhale, begin to round forward. You can let the palms face open towards the sky as a symbol of release. Or maybe I like to place my palms underneath my calves. And then I can lengthen into my calves a bit, pressing down into the palms to get that extra sense of groundedness. Go ahead and breathe into the back body here, soften the shoulders. One of the things that I've had to learn more recently about this idea of shadow work is the misconception that it's all about sort of picking apart the bad or the negative aspects about our being. You know, it's so hard just to be a human already, and we doubt and we shame ourselves so much, and just that idea of focusing on the negative really didn't sit well with me. And so I think instead taking this look at ourselves in the sense that we are already whole, right? And it's not so much working to cut off or let go of these aspects of us that are bad, but it's more about just restoring ourselves to our true nature, and sort of dusting off some of the dirt and the grime that we've picked up along the way. So give yourself these next few breaths here, restoring yourself. Inhale, slowly start to lift. Look up towards your toes. Begin to stack the shoulders back over the hips, and as you're ready, we'll come down into our Shavasana. So just extend the legs. Go ahead and lay yourself all the way down to the mat. You can take the palms open up towards the sky. Let the toes turn out wide. If you'd like to maybe take a moment, bring the knees in towards the chest at first and massage the low back. That's an option for you too. As you're ready, releasing the body fully to the floor. allowing yourself to wiggle and shake until you get comfortable, until you have that sense of full release and restoration for yourself. Gently beginning to come back into the breath. Come back into the body. Maybe allowing some soft trickle of movement to flow in through the tips of the fingertips and the tips of the toes. Giving yourself the time and the space to reawaken as you're ready. We'll roll ourselves over to whichever side feels intuitive to you, and eventually pressing ourselves back up into our seated pose. Let's bring the palms up to the heart, actually making physical contact, palms against the chest. Lengthening into the back of the neck, bowing the chin in towards the heart. Just take a breath of compassion for yourself here. Reminding ourselves that there is nothing about us that needs fixed. We rather just are working to find our way back to what is always with us, but we may have forgotten. Thank you so much for your practice. It's been my honor to guide you. Namaste.